all-new Dr. Phil. A glamour model claims she was kidnapped.
I woke up when I was in a duffel bag.
And abducted to Italy.
Your abductor takes you shopping in the village. The locals reported you laughing like a happy couple.
I wasn't laughing.
They found DNA in the sheets.
It didn't involve me in his sexual act.
Why do you think people are speculating that you faked this kidnapping?
Ploy Ailing says that she was abducted in Milan, Italy, while attending a photo shoot. Milan police officers say Ailing was attacked, drugged, handcuffed, and locked inside a suitcase.
It was an unthinkable story that took over the headlines. Now, the 20-year-old claims she was lured by her kidnappers to a fake modeling shoot in Milan by a dangerous gang called Black Death. But instead of being photographed, she was drugged and snatched by masked men. Take a look.
This is a reenactment by an Italian policewoman. Chloe was driven to this remote farmhouse where she was told she would be sold on the so-called dark web.
These were the photos used to sell Chloe. The starting price for the beautiful model, $300,000.
Chloe says she was handcuffed to a dresser for a week.
A police source told me that initially they had little idea about what they were dealing with. The whole thing was bizarre, something they had never come across before.
The model says she was detained for 6 days until her captor discovered she was a mother.
For some reason, the kidnapping was suspended. The woman was taken by one of the kidnappers to the British consulate in Milan.
Soon after what seemed to be a miraculous release, suspicious details began to emerge. Was the model lying about her ordeal? Was she actually in on it? During 13 long hours of questioning by police, Chloe never once mentioned that her alleged captor took her out in public. In fact, she was seen shoe shopping, laughing, and eating with the man she claims was threatening her life. Now, is she a victim or is she lying? In a daytime exclusive, Chloe is here telling her story and answering the question, did she fake being kidnapped?
Hello.
Chloe, Dr. Phil.
Nice to meet you.
How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
All right. Well, I have been reading so much about your ordeal, but in your own words, can you tell me what took place?
I was booked for a shoot in Paris in April by my ex-agent. And I was supposed to go to the studio, but then the hotel reception got a call from the photographer because all the camera equipment has been stolen. There's been a burglary overnight, so the shoot can't take place anymore.
The person that booked you was someone named Andre?
Andre Lazio, yeah.
And they paid the fee in advance, £600?
Yeah, to my agent, yeah.
And Andre told you he was Italian?
Well, on the emails it said Italian temper in the heart of France, something like that.
So this was on what date?
It was the 20th or the 21st of April this year.
So you go home, then what happens?
A month later in May, Phil calls me saying you've been rebooked for the same shoot, but in Milan this time, by Andre.
So you fly London to Milan?
Yes, on the 10th of July.
Then the shoot is scheduled for July 11th, right?
July 11th, yeah.
All right. And you allege that on July 11th, 2017, you were kidnapped in Milan, Italy.
Yes.
Take me through that day. You got email instructions on where to go. Who was the email from and what did the instructions say?
It was from Andre, but both the Paris and Milan was on an Andre email. It stated that he might not be able to come to the front of the studio before, so if that's the case, then I should just walk in.
When you get to the location, you get out of the cab.
I tried to open the door, but it was locked. So I think that didn't match what the email said about just walk in. So again, I called the contact number that was on the email. So I said, where's Andre? And he said, Andre doesn't get here till 9, but I'm in the studio, so just come in. But then I said, the door's locked. And then he said, no, you've obviously got the wrong door. So then I walked down a couple of doors, and there was like a smaller building, which was number 7, and it said the company name on the door.
Okay, tell me what happens then.
I had my suitcase in one hand and my purse and my phone in the other hand. I opened the door, put my luggage in, and I went round the corner, and then still silence, and I didn't see anyone, so I didn't really know where to go. So I was about to put my hand onto the door to open it to check if anyone's there, and then that's when I was attacked from behind. So a guy puts his hand around my neck and his other hand with a glove on my mouth and my nose. I was struggling to breathe, I couldn't breathe at all. I was trying to get his finger off my nose so I could at least catch a breath. Eventually I managed to. Another guy ran round to the front. He had a black mask on with 2 separate eye holes and a mouth. And he was holding a syringe to my arm. So I was trying to fight back, trying to kick about, but I couldn't fight off 2 grown men, so they managed to tackle me to the ground, and then eventually the syringe went into me, and then that's when I lost consciousness.
And show me on your arm where the syringe went in.
It was here.
Right in here?
Yeah.
How long did it take for you to go unconscious?
Straight away.
Did you ever find out what they used?
Ketamine.
And how do you know that?
Lucas, the one posing as Andre, told me it was ketamine while I was being held, but then it was found in my hair sample that the police take.
Lucas is Andre.
Yes.
And
but at the time, I only knew him as Andre. I found out his name through the police reports.
Okay. And you think that there were how many men total involved on this whole trip?
From what Lucas had led me to believe, there was 2 Romanians that took me, then Lucas, then the driver, and then Lucas's boss, CK.
2 Romanians, Lucas,
the driver, and the boss, CK.
And you don't think that's true?
I don't think that's true now.
So you think Lucas and Michael were the only 2 involved?
Well, yeah.
And they're brothers?
Yes.
What's your next conscious awareness?
I woke up and I was in a duffel bag. I had tape on my mouth, my wrists were handcuffed, and so were my ankles, and I didn't have my clothes that I came into the studio in. I just had a bodysuit and socks. So they had taken off my jeans, my trainers, my jacket and my hat.
Okay. So you're in a duffel bag, zipped up?
Zipped up, and I had a little hole to breathe from.
This is a recreation that the police did. So was that the position they put you in?
Yes, I was curled up, yeah.
Where is the duffel bag?
It was in a moving car, in the boot.
You were in the trunk.
Yeah. So I managed to peel the tape off my mouth, and I was sticking my hands through the little hole that they had left me, and I was saying, driver, where are we? What's happening? I was just trying to get the attention of the driver, and it took a while before the car actually pulled over.
What happened when the car stopped?
2 masked men came round the back of the car, opened the boot, literally didn't say anything, and put my hands back in the bag, put the tape still over my mouth again, and just secured me more, zipped up the bag, shut the boot, and then carried on driving.
How long before you stopped the next
About
time?
20 minutes, not long. Both came round to the back, but this time they took the handcuffs off and put them behind my back.
Okay, so you're off again?
Mm-hmm.
How long this time?
Again, about 20 minutes. But this time when they stopped, the guy was unmasked and he got into the boot with me.
What did you think when you saw his face?
He was obviously foreign.
How do you know?
Just doesn't look English. And then he was able to speak to me, but he spoke in brief English, but not very good, and he had an accent. I was trying to talk to him and say, what's happening, where are we going? And he kept saying, nobody hurt you. You know when someone can't speak well English, but they're still trying? He's like, nobody hurt you, I promise, don't worry, trying to reassure me. And I was like, well, who's that driving? And then he was like, I don't know. And I was like, where are we going? I don't know. He always claimed not to know where we were going.
Did it occur to you that if a kidnapper lets you see his face, that's because you're not going to get away?
That thought didn't occur to me, no.
Apparently didn't occur to Michael either.
But I don't think Michael thought I was going to be free at the end of it.
So that abductor, you think he thought he was getting in the trunk with a dead girl?
Coming up.
What were these pictures here?
That was obviously taken when I was drugged at the studio.
These were the photos that they posted on the website you ultimately saw?
Yes. He says you're for sale online, and then I say, what do you mean for sale? He said you've been kidnapped for sex trafficking.
Was there a price on your head?
We now return to Glamour Model. Did she fake her own kidnapping?
So that abductor, you think he thought he was getting in the trunk with a dead girl?
Soon to be, yeah.
Were you thinking about your son at this point?
I was thinking about my family, my mum, my son, everyone in my family, yeah. Like, what are the chances of me coming out alive?
What did you think the chances were of you coming out alive?
Very little. They wouldn't kidnap someone for nothing. So I was crying in the boot with the unmasked man, like just having those thoughts.
So where were you eventually taken?
It was like a 4-hour drive from Milan. I didn't see the front of the house when I was arriving.
This turned out to be a farmhouse, right?
Yes. So we got to the destination, he opened the boot and they carried me out of the boot in the bag.
What's the first thing you saw? Describe your surroundings.
I was in a kitchen. It was like a tiled floor. Then I needed to use the toilet. So the unmasked man led me upstairs and took me to the bathroom. He had to stand in the bathroom with me while I used it. And then we step out and there's a sleeping bag and then a chest of drawers. And the masked man points to the sleeping bag.
Did they take your restraints off for a little while?
I had my ankle ones on while I was going to the toilet, but they took my hand ones off.
Okay.
And then as soon as I lay on the sleeping bag, the unmasked man was instructed by the masked man to put them around so that I was attached to the furniture.
Did they leave you alone then?
So I was laying there and then they both went downstairs. And there was like raised voices downstairs in a foreign language. And then after a while, the unmasked man came back up to me and sat cross-legged by my head and started talking, saying that they've just been on the phone to the boss and the boss thinks there's been a mistake. So he's going to come all the way over to the house and sort everything out, but this guy has got to go. He said he's got to go for another job. But at that time, he was the one that was, reassuring me in the boot. Like, then I would have been left with this masked man downstairs, and I didn't want that to happen, so I was like, you have to go. And then he was like, yeah, I've got to go, but nobody hurt you. He still kept saying that. And then he went downstairs, and that's the last I saw of him.
Ever?
Yes.
Okay. Why do you suppose they were giving you a play-by-play? I mean, coming up telling you, well, we got the wrong person,
I don't
the boss
know.
is on the phone, I need to go.
I don't know.
What did they tell you about why you'd been kidnapped?
And then it took some time before he came up to me, and he sat on the single bed beside me.
Who came up and sat by you?
The boss.
Did you recognize him?
I didn't recognize him at first, no.
Did you recognize his voice?
No.
Why did he tell you you'd been kidnapped?
Well, he said, I don't know if you remember, but I briefly met you in Paris.
He was Andre.
He said he was Andre, yeah. Like, he was the one that I met.
But you didn't recognize him?
No, he had sunglasses on at Paris airport. So I just didn't connect the faces.
But once he told you, did you remember?
Once he told me, yeah.
What does he say?
He says, I've just seen your advert, you're online for sale. And then I say, what do you mean for sale? And then he explains about sex trafficking. He said, you've been kidnapped for sex trafficking.
Was there a price on your head?
It was 300,000 starting bid, US dollars.
What were these pictures here?
So that was obviously taken when I was drugged at the studio. That was not when I was conscious because I don't remember the photos being taken.
Okay. And then the second one with the thing on your stomach there, what was that?
That was the Black Death logo, and then underneath it was emails of how you can contact Black Death to buy me.
Who did they tell you Black Death was?
A massive criminal organization that doesn't just do kidnapping, it does all crimes like drug, hitmen.
Had you ever heard of them before?
No.
What do you think as you look at those pictures?
When he first showed me, I didn't even want to look at them too much because like just seeing like my eyes and like my hands are all weird. It's horrible to look at.
Yeah.
Like the discoloring on my neck, and they actually took my hair out. I had my hair up in a cap.
And these were the photos that they posted on the website you ultimately saw?
Yes.
What did they tell you about sex trafficking? Did they tell you how this works?
But he said there had been a mistake because basically in Paris, he said he aborted the shoot because he had checked my Instagram and seen that pictures of me with my son and pictures of me pregnant. So the Romanians showed him that and he looked down on my Instagram and said, no, this cannot happen. It's against Black Death's rules to sell pregnant people, young mothers, people with STIs or a terminal illness.
That's their rules?
So that's why he said he aborted the shoot in Paris. That is the rules, because it devalues the females.
It wasn't like a moral code, you're just not worth it.
No, it's just you're not worth. Like he was saying, virgins sell for the most, and it's between 14 to 20-year-olds, so you're at the high end of the spectrum.
So did he tell you how much girls typically go for?
They start at anything between 300,000, but virgins will go up for $1 million because they're the most valued, and the younger you are, the better as well.
So they got the wrong woman. Are they going to let you go?
That's what I said. I said, so if you got the wrong person, why can't I just go? And then he said it's not that simple, despite the young mother rule, because they had already asked the clients, do you care that she's a young mother? And they had said no. Black Death were willing to sell me, but he said he's strongly against that. So I would have to pay my way out before the auction, which takes place on Sunday.
You have to buy yourself?
Yes.
Before Sunday?
Yes.
So you got to come up with 300 grand?
Yes.
What'd you think about that?
He was still on my side at this point. He said, because I'm so against the rule, I will be willing to pay some of the ransom, but it's not allowed to come all from me, even if I wanted to, because Black Death won't allow that. It has to come from me as well, because it's not fair on the clients that he would be able to buy me out.
He's actually going to pay money to free you?
Yes. He claimed money isn't an issue for him. He said he's worked there for 5 years. He's earned $15 million in those 5 years through assassination.
So he's a hitman?
Yes.
So how much did he say roughly he was going to chip in?
$250 and I pay $50.
How were you supposed to do that while you're in captivity?
He said, what do your family have to offer? Then I said, not much. Like, I don't come from a rich background. Then he said, what about Phil?
Your agent?
Yes. And I said, Phil doesn't have money either. And then he says, well, can you give me 3 names of people you think will help you out in this situation? He sent the 3 names to Phil. And Phil, it was up to Phil to contact the names to gather the money before Sunday.
Did somebody stay with you 24/7 watching you?
He was the only person during that time.
Okay, because you never saw Michael again.
No.
So the only other person you saw after Michael left was the person that presented himself as Andre, that we now know to be Lucas.
Yes.
Okay. And he stayed with you 24/7?
No, he would go out sometimes to do email checks because he'd have to go down the mountain to do the email checks, so it would take about half an hour.
And what did he do with you while he was gone?
Well, at the first I was still chained, and then from the second day I was allowed half of the bed.
Up till then you were sleeping on the floor on the sleeping bag?
Yes.
Did somebody sleep in the bed with you?
Lucas on the other side of the bed. Like, I had half, he had half. It was like divided by blankets. I had like a red one, he had a yellow one, and we just kept to our sides.
Were you afraid he was going to sexually assault you?
He said he can't touch women because it devalues them, and that is death penalty if anyone in Black Death actually touches women. So he was always asking, did the Romanians rape you? Did they touch you in any way? I was like, I don't know, I was unconscious.
So there are lots of ways to sexually assault someone without having sex with them. You weren't concerned he would do anything?
He didn't.
But were you worried about it?
He wasn't like forceful in any way.
When the police processed the crime scene, they found DNA in the sheets. You were clearly sexually relevant to him. How do you suppose it got there?
Coming up.
You spent 13 hours with the police, but you never mentioned going shopping. Why did you omit it?
We now return to Glamour Model. Did she fake her own kidnapping?
We've learned more about the terrifying ordeal of a young model who says she was drugged, stuffed in a suitcase, and kidnapped when she arrived for a photo shoot. The young woman says she was told she would be sold into online sex slavery.
A 30-year-old Polish man was arrested. He was allegedly working with a cybercrime organization known as Black Death. He was reportedly hoping to sell the woman for more than $200,000.
When the police processed the crime scene, they found DNA in the sheets. How do you suppose it got there?
That was because he said that he can't take it anymore. This was towards the end of the week. He had like problems down there. He said he can't take it anymore. So he said, you go to the shower while I have to relieve myself. So I went to the shower and he did that.
What'd you think about that?
It still didn't involve me in his sexual act.
You were clearly sexually relevant to him.
Yeah, that was towards the end of the week.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what I had to do and promise him to actually survive.
You had to promise him what?
possible plans for the future.
And what did you promise him?
Nothing specific, but I'd always say, if you release me, then maybe something can happen in the future, like we can meet up.
And how did he respond to that?
He was getting really happy about that, so I had to cling on to doing that to be able to get him to release me.
But you think he believed you?
Yes, he believed me.
He started to give you chocolate and water and clean clothes, that sort of thing.
I had water from sealed bottles almost after 4 days, so it was the Friday at midnight. He gave me a bit of chocolate, and that was the first time I ate.
Andre emailed the Sun and the Daily Mirror.
Mm-hmm. But then one of the conditions of my release is that I go to media and promote how their services can be reached and also what they do to a UK audience.
Promote who does?
Black Death. So I had 4 conditions on my release.
And what were the 4 conditions?
I had to pay the remaining $50,000 US within 1 month of my release.
Right.
I had to promote them in the media. Me and my family cannot speak badly about Black Death in any way, and I must end any police investigation on the return in my home country.
While you were still there, did you ever leave the house with him?
I was taken on the Tuesday, and on the Sunday I left the house.
What'd you do?
I went to the village and went into a hiking store, and then a grocery store, and then back to the house.
The locals reported to the police that you seemed comfortable and laughing and
I wasn't laughing,
like a
but
happy couple.
I wasn't laughing, but I was always having to keep him on side, keep him happy. That was my only focus and goal, is to make him happy and not cross him in any way. Because I was on the Saturdays when he told me that he would take me to the consulate, and he said his original plan was to drop me 20 minutes away. So he said, you need to get some shoes because I didn't have anything. He gave me a Polish tracksuit that I could wear and put on, and I did that when we went to the village.
Did that seem odd to you, that a girl is missing, and in this age of the internet, pictures everywhere, that he's going to take you and go waltz into the village and shop around?
But he had brainwashed me the whole time before that, because this was at the end of the week. So he spent the whole 5 days, all of this talking. I was completely brainwashed into believing that Black Death was the biggest criminal organisation, and that even if I managed to escape successfully, they would still come and kill me.
But did it strike you odd that he would take you out in public?
It was a really small village. It wasn't anywhere major.
You spent 13 hours with the police because you said you broke the rule and answered questions.
Yes, I was just sitting in that police station thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I answering the questions when I'm just going to die? Because he was saying that they rule the police, they're higher than the police, that they could never find them, they use untrackable technology to get to these places.
You spent 13 hours with him, but you never mentioned going shopping.
Coming up.
You left your prison and went out in public, walking around without chains, without cuffs, with your abductor, and you choose that to be too tired to talk about. You knew it would look bad.
Not look bad, but I just didn't want to answer.
Closed captioning provided by...
We now return to Glamour Model. Did she fake her own kidnapping?
When glamour model Chloe Ayling described her horrendous ordeal at the hands of depraved kidnappers in Italy, it created a global media storm. The 20-year-old mother from London told Italian police she'd been drugged, handcuffed, gagged, and put in a bag in the boot of a car. Chloe believes her captors wanted to auction her as a sex slave on the dark web, but she was released after 6 days. In the week that followed, many questions were asked about the validity of Chloe's claims, with some even suggesting her kidnap was faked. Despite eyewitness reports of her shopping for shoes with her alleged captor, Chloe's lawyer insisted she was scared for her life.
You spent 13 hours with the police, but you never mentioned going shopping.
I know, that was because it was on the Sunday, that was at the end of, that was about the 10th hour, and it was a 13-hour interview, so I brushed it off. I just said, I don't know.
What was the question that you said, I don't know to?
How did I get the tracksuit I was wearing and the shoes? I just he said he gave me the tracksuit and I'm not sure about the shoes. And then the prosecutors came in at the end and said they had spoken to the lady that owns the shoe shop, and she confirmed that I was with him, and then I admitted it straight away.
Why did you omit it?
Because I was just so tired. I knew that would amount to more questions, and I just literally couldn't even keep my eyes open. It was the end of the interview. Out
of everything that took place, a kidnap victim going shopping with their abductor.
But it wasn't shopping like everyone makes out it to be. It was literally just going into a hiking store to grab the first pair of shoes we saw in order for me to go back to the consulate on Monday and walk the 20-minute journey he planned for me to walk because he didn't want cameras to catch his face. That's all it was.
That's shopping. I mean, you left your prison and went out in public, walking around without chains, without cuffs, without anything, with your abductor, and you choose that to be too tired to talk about.
What happened to me is so serious, and then that, like how the media's portraying it, makes it sound not serious. But they don't realise that it was the 5 days of like complete brainwashing, staying in the house after all that's happened.
So you left it out on purpose?
No, I was tired, and so I just brushed it off. Well, I admitted it straight after when the prosecutor came in.
So you knew it would look bad?
Not look bad, but I just didn't want to answer.
So it wasn't just that you were tired, you thought, if I tell them this, they're going to think, well, hell, they went shopping in the village.
Because no one can understand it unless you've actually been through that, like how powerful the brain is and what you actually are led to believe. Like, people don't understand that. It's easy for people to say, why didn't she try and escape? But it's really not that easy when you're in that situation.
Bars are not just iron. A prison can be mental. So I can understand you feeling tethered to him, but I don't understand why he would take a risk of taking you into town.
Oh, that was because on the Saturday, you know, when Phil made contact saying he's got the 20,000, he said that Black Death think they can get more from Phil now that he's managed to get. So they're going to try and do that, so they might have to keep me there for longer. And that's when I just completely broke down on that Saturday. Like, I was like, I could not stay here for any longer. I just was crying all day. I was so down. He felt sorry for me and he said, all right, it's fine, I'll release you on Monday. And then he admitted that we are still in Italy and we're not as remote as he made out it to be, so he can take me to the village in the morning.
So he was doing this to console you?
To help me, yeah.
Do you think he was in love with you?
Towards the end, yeah.
Toward the end, were you affectionate with him?
Not physically.
You didn't manipulate him in that way?
Not physically. I'd always say that I just can't do anything like that. I just want to be released. I want to see my family. And if you do that, that's what made him look forward to the future.
You made him believe that if he released you, then you would sleep with him. You would have a romantic relationship with him. Then what happens?
And then we go back to the house, and this is when he spends the whole day waiting for the official release letter. It can't just be a normal, like, bye. It's got to come with the conditions, why I had been released, and everything. So he was waiting for this, and that eventually came at about 6 o'clock in the evening on Sunday.
Who sent the email?
Black Death.
And what did it say?
It said, I'm being released as a huge generosity of Black Death. And then it said the reason for my release was that I'm a young mother and I should not have been lured into kidnapping, and also because one of the well-respected men of Black Death was standing up for me.
So you've got the letter, now what?
So that was my official release, but he said he'd take me back on the Monday morning because that's when the consulate opens.
What, the letter came in about 6, you said?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So there was 4 hours before you went to bed. What'd you do?
Just the same as any other day, just lying on the bed.
Talking?
Talking.
About what?
Just general stuff. He was always telling me about what Black Death does, just stuff like that.
Did you think, it's only 6 o'clock, let's go?
Yeah, because he said he'd take me on the Monday morning. I wasn't going to disobey that.
Okay, so you get up Monday and off you go.
Yes, we get there at about 7:30, and this is where he changed his plan because we got there so early. He said he didn't want to leave me on my own. The consulate doesn't open until 9:30, so we parked the car and then we went to the place next door to the consulate, which was like a little cafe, and we had sat down and had a drink there.
Did you ask him if you could call your family and tell them I'm alive, I'm okay?
He obviously wouldn't let me do that.
It's now 9:30. What happens?
We walk into the consulate And then I told the lady behind the window that I'd been kidnapped.
Coming up.
Police say they've not been able to trace any type of crime like this back to a group called Black Death. What is your response to that? Closed captioning.
We now return to Glamour Model. Did she fake her own kidnapping?
Ploy says she was lured to Milan and this flat on the promise of a modelling assignment. She was allegedly drugged and woke up handcuffed in a bag in the boot of a car.
The lawyer for one of the alleged abductors claimed the entire ordeal was a sham and a publicity stunt.
It's now 9:30.
Yes.
What happens?
We walk into the consulate, and then I told the lady behind the window that I'd been kidnapped. But he had told me to say that he was a friend. He said, you've got to say that I'm a friend and you called me on your release, like from a random person's phone. And that was his plan, and I said, okay, I'll say that.
Okay, so you walk up to the window.
Yes.
You tell her your name?
I said, like, what had happened, and then she knew about the case, so she asked me to confirm my name, and I said my name.
And what did she do?
She said, I have to go to the private room. And then he demanded to come with me. He obviously didn't trust that I would say what he told me to say. He said to her, I've got to come with her. And then she says, you can't do that. And then he said, I've got to. So they had like a mini argument. And then after that, when he realizes he can't come in, he says, okay, I'm going then. And then that's when he went out of the consulate room and I went to the private room.
Where did the police get him?
Outside of the waiting room of the consulate.
Were you cooperative with the police?
Yes, at that time. Well, at that time I still said he was a friend, because when the door kept opening, I saw his face and he was shaking his head at me when he was being surrounded. So I still said what he wanted me to say, and it wasn't until we got to the police station that I said he was the guy. And I was like, no longer.
Did they ask you who he was?
They said, what's his number? And I said, I don't know. Because, you know, he wanted me to say that I'd called him off a stranger's phone once I'd been released. And then, so obviously they knew, like, it doesn't take a genius to work out that that's not my friend.
So did you say I lied, that's my kidnapper?
Not then, I said that when I got to the police station.
So why is Lucas saying he was not knowingly part of a kidnapping?
He admitted his role in the kidnapping. He said he did not knowingly take part in a crime.
Well, it can't be both.
But he said in his police statement that he was asked by Romanians and paid $500,000 to get these locations and where he could store stuff, and that's what he was paid for. And when they planned to kidnap me, he backed out of the plan.
Police say they've not been able to trace any type of crime like this back to a group called Black Death. What is your response to that?
Well, that's why I'd been so calm when I went back to the UK, because an investigator came into my apartment and he'd said, we know the whole truth behind the investigation, so you don't have to be as fearful as you are now when you go back to the UK. And that really did calm me down, because that whole 3 weeks I was thinking, I'm still in Milan, like, people are going to get me from that organisation, they must know that I'm still being kept here.
Lawyers for the alleged captor say the entire case could be a sham and invented as a publicity stunt. What's your reaction to that?
Coming up.
This is a mafia hitman that has made $15 million blowing people's brains out. But he's going to pay $250,000 to set you free. That doesn't strike you odd? Lawyers for the alleged captor say the entire case could be a sham and invented as a publicity stunt. What's your reaction to that?
I think that's because the way the papers portray the story, and also because of the way I look. So Michael has obviously seen the papers doubt my story, and therefore his lawyers are going to find anything they can to stop him from getting extradited, but the evidence is so strong against both of them that him lying is not going to go to his advantage.
I'm having a problem with some of the things that you said. You have two men that abduct you. They put you in a trunk and drive you for hours. At one point, another one gets in there with you, and then they tell you whoops, we weren't supposed to take you. And this Lucas says, I'll help you. I'll even pay $250,000 to get you free.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he doesn't know you. He's upset that they've taken the wrong person. This is a mafia hitman that has made $15 million blowing people's brains out. But he's going to pay $250,000 to set you free. And he takes you shopping in the village. That doesn't strike you odd that this sophisticated hitman is going to walk me in to the government building so I can turn myself in?
Didn't seem weird to me at the time. I was completely brainwashed. I was just thinking they're above the police, that's Black Death is all. Like, I was completely like hypnotized into it. I can't even explain how it felt.
And your job was to go on the media and say, okay, well, here are
and that's how he
menu of
expected
services.
me to...
We do kidnapping, murder, extortion. He wants you to go down and talk about here are the services we offer.
Yes.
You would be on the media for what reason? Because you were kidnapped by them.
Yes, that was their plan.
We kidnapped you, we were going to sell you into sex trafficking, and we think you are the best representative because you know how good we are at this. We kidnapped you, so you're going to now go in and
See,
go
I don't
through
get
their
why
menu of
people
services.
question me for what he wanted. I
No,
I don't
what
read
you
minds.
believe.
I still believe that, yeah.
You didn't lay there at night thinking, come on.
No. I just was completely believing of Black Death. You know, when they found out the truth of the investigation, I didn't want it to get into the media. The Italians did a press release. I didn't want it to get out because I was embarrassed of being naive and gullible.
Do you think he's a lonely guy, maybe, that just did this and made up this story to get near you and be a hero?
I don't know. I don't know what it was behind it.
You think people are speculating that you faked this kidnapping?
Firstly, because of how I look. So because I do glamour, they associate that with publicity. If I was just a normal person, teacher, then they wouldn't make those assumptions. They would be treated a lot more seriously.
Uh-huh. Well, you came here today, certainly an image. I mean, you're...
Yeah, I'm not going to change what I look like because I was kidnapped. The change that I have made is not having my ex-agent anymore because of what he did, and he didn't do the checks, and that is why I was kidnapped. I almost lost my life because of this guy.
But you think the people that think it's a scam because you're young and attractive, not because...
And because of
it's
how
bizarre.
It is a bizarre story. Like,
and not
even,
because you
even I
failed to
think
tell the
it's
police
bizarre.
that you went shopping with the guy and all of that.
Yes. People are questioning me for their methods that they used, saying why would he walk into the consulate, why would he do this? But how am I to answer for that when he can make up such detailed lies? When his defense lawyer said about the publicity stunt, that was front page news. But then when the judge decided that he should be extradited, there was only a tiny little article about that. And if they were to actually lay out all of the evidence that Italian police have against the brothers, as opposed to always picking out stuff in the story that doesn't look normal to the public, then people would have a different view on this completely.
Let me say something to you that is just in my DNA that I have to say.
Coming up.
If this was a publicity stunt gone wrong, the time to say so and stop this runaway train is now. Closed captioning provided by... Let me say something to you that is just in my DNA that I have to say. I absolutely understand how mind control works and how you can have leverage over someone mentally and by creating, either real or imagined, a risk-reward ratio circumstance where you sit there and say, I can make a run for it and have a 2% chance of escape and a 98% chance of getting caught. If I get caught, I have a 100% chance of being assassinated. I think I'll stay here and try to get out of this some other way.
Yeah.
And go with me here theoretically. If you were involved in this in any way, if the media is right that this was a publicity stunt gone wrong, Michael and Lucas and their lawyers are going to come after you to prove that. If this was not real and that comes out later during trial, now you're talking about perjury and fraud and a whole lot of very serious crimes. So if you guys hatched a plan and it went really badly, then the time to say so and stop this runaway train is now.
No, it's 100% real, and the truth will be revealed at the trial.
Thanks for telling your story.
Thank you.
All right, best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Now, despite her detractors, Chloe stands by her story and says she is working to recover from what she says was a terrible nightmare. Now, I must point out that Chloe was willing to answer any questions that I posed. She never hesitated when telling her story. Lucas Herba remains in custody in Italy. He is charged with kidnapping. His brother, Michael Herba, is also charged with kidnapping. Lucas' attorney maintains this was a publicity stunt and that his client did not knowingly take part in any crime. So we're going to leave you to draw your own conclusion. For more information, you can go to drphil.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.